Even in the dead of night, neon lights painted the rain-soaked streets in colors that felt almost alive: pink, blue, green, gold. Hovercars drifted through the mist, their engines humming softly while people walked fast, eyes locked on their glowing wrist screens. Nobody talked. Nobody smiled. The city was full, yet it felt empty. Among those silent faces walked Dr. Alara Vance. Once she had been known as one of the most talented linguists of her time. Years ago, she worked with the Global Communication Division, decoding alien transmissions that had reached Earth from a distant star system. People had called her a genius. They had believed she would unlock the universe's greatest secret, but something had gone wrong. The experiment ended in disaster. Her entire team was lost when the facility's core collapsed during a test. The official report called it a technical failure, but Alara blamed herself. After that day, she never touched her research again. She moved into a small apartment in the lower district and began teaching basic communication courses to students who barely listened. She no longer believed in miracles, only in mistakes. That night, the rain was heavier than usual. She held her thin umbrella close as she walked down the narrow street beside the old fusion tower. The tower's glow flickered weakly, a reminder that Erebos itself was dying slowly, just like the planet it stood on. Alara liked walking there because it was quiet. No one bothered her, but tonight she noticed someone sitting on a bench near the tower, a man she had never seen before. He wore a dark coat and rain slid off his shoulders as if it couldn't touch him. His head was slightly tilted upward, watching the glowing clouds. Something about him felt strange. Not dangerous, but out of place. When Alara passed by, the man spoke. "You walk the same path every night," he said softly. She stopped, startled. His voice was calm and deep, and his accent didn't belong to any region she knew. "I didn't realize someone was keeping track," she replied, half smiling. "I listen," he said simply. "It's what I do." Alara didn't know what to say. Usually she avoided conversation, but something in his tone made her curious. His words were careful, almost musical, as if each sentence had a rhythm. It reminded her of something. Something old, something she had once studied. "You talk like a scholar," she said finally. "Are you a teacher?" He shook his head. "No, I'm just someone who listens to others speak, and sometimes I repeat what they need to hear." Alara frowned slightly. "And what do you think I need to hear?" The man's eyes were pale gray, but not cold. "That silence is not the same as peace." Her heart skipped for a moment. Those were words she hadn't expected from a stranger. She wanted to walk away, but her feet didn't move. His voice carried warmth, a kind of calm she hadn't felt in years. "Who are you?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Someone passing through." Alara nodded awkwardly, unsure how to continue. She almost turned to leave, but then he spoke again. "You used to work with languages," he said quietly. "Didn't you?" That stopped her. "How do you know that?" "I read people," he said. "The way they hold themselves, the way they hesitate before speaking. Words tell stories even when unspoken." Alara stared at him for a few seconds. Something about him unsettled her, not in a frightening way, but in the way a mirror unsettles you when it shows something you've tried to forget. "Finally," she said, "you sound like you know more about me than I know about you." "Perhaps," he said, standing up slowly. "But that's the nature of words. They reveal what we try to hide." Before she could respond, he began walking away into the mist. Alara stood there, her umbrella trembling slightly in the wind. She didn't even know his name, but his words echoed in her mind long after he disappeared. Silence is not the same as peace. The next few nights, Alara found herself returning to the same spot. She told herself it was just coincidence, that she liked the sound of the rain near the fusion tower, but deep down, she hoped to see him again. On the fourth night, he was there. Sitting on the same bench watching the rain. "You came back," he said as she approached. "I could say the same," she replied. They talked again, this time about simple things. The city, the fading power grid, the old music that no one played anymore. Yet somehow every sentence carried weight. His words weren't ordinary, they felt healing. When she mentioned her past, she expected judgment or pity. Instead, he listened quietly. "I failed," she said finally. "Everyone did. But I was the one who decoded the final signal. I thought I understood it, but I was wrong. After that day, I stopped believing in language itself." The man tilted his head. Then maybe you never stopped believing. Maybe you were only waiting for the right voice to remind you why it matters. Alara smiled weakly. You really are strange. I've been called worse, he replied, smiling faintly. After that night, they met often. He never told her his full name, but he said she could call him Kyle. He never asked for anything, never pried, never crossed any boundaries. He only listened and spoke with gentle honesty. Strangely, the more she talked to him, the lighter she felt. The guilt that had haunted her dreams began to fade. Her chest didn't hurt as much when she remembered the past. For the first time in years, she started to sleep peacefully. One evening, after returning home from one of their talks, Alara noticed something unusual. Her old research console, an antique she hadn't powered on in years, was glowing softly. The system should have been dead, disconnected from all networks. Yet a small light blinked on the screen. Signal detected, she frowned. That couldn't be right. She touched the interface, and lines of code began to scroll across the display. The pattern was strange, repeating rhythms and pauses, almost like speech. Alara froze. Her heart began to beat faster. She knew that structure. She had spent years studying it. It was part of the alien transmission that had once reached Earth. But this time it was slightly different, more human. She listened carefully, letting the data stream convert into sound. A series of gentle tones filled the room. It wasn't music exactly, but it felt alive, calm, and balanced. And then she realized something that made her blood run cold. The rhythm, the spacing, the pauses. They matched Kale's voice. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned off the console and stared at the dark screen, her mind spinning. Who was he really? And why did his words feel like something more than language? That night she couldn't sleep. The rain fell harder outside, tapping softly against her window. Every drop reminded her of his voice. Every echo made her wonder if she had met something or someone, not quite human. As she drifted into uneasy dreams, a single thought whispered through her mind, repeating like a song she couldn't forget. Silence is not the same as peace. And for the first time, Alara began to believe that maybe, just maybe, the universe hadn't stopped speaking to her after all. The following morning, Alara Vance awoke to sunlight slipping through the grime on her apartment window. The neon glow of Erebos was gone for now, replaced by the soft gold of dawn, yet the unease in her chest remained. Her mind kept returning to last night's discovery, Kale's voice embedded in the alien code. She sat at her desk, staring at the console. Her fingers hovered above the keys, reluctant. It had been years since she touched this equipment. Too many years. The old circuits hummed faintly, alive despite the dust. The signal still pulsed softly on the monitor. Something was waiting for her to understand it. Alara took a deep breath and activated the translation module. She watched as lines of code rearranged themselves into recognizable patterns. Her heart skipped. The structure was unmistakable. It matched the patterns she had seen in her research before the disaster. But this time it was different, more deliberate, more human. It was as if someone had taken the alien language and folded it into human emotion. The tones rose and fell like a heartbeat. The words were not just meant to communicate, they were meant to reach the soul. Hours later, she walked through the streets, the rain having returned like a persistent memory. Kale sat on the same bench near the fusion tower, as if waiting for her. He didn't look at her when she approached. Instead, he continued watching the clouds which glowed faintly with the city's neon reflection. You came early, he said when she stopped beside him. I couldn't sleep, she admitted. I had to check something. I think you're part of it. Part of what? He asked calmly. The signal, she said. It's alive. It has your voice. I can't explain it, but it matches your rhythm, your pauses, the way you speak. Kale tilted his head slightly. I am not surprised. You are beginning to understand. Understand what? She pressed. He finally turned to her, his pale gray eyes serious. The message is not just sound. It is empathy. It carries memory, sorrow, hope. Humans call it language, but it is more. It is feeling made tangible. And you, he said slowly, are the first person in centuries who can truly receive it. Alara shivered. She wanted to laugh, to reject the idea that some stranger was trying to teach her more than she could comprehend. But the warmth in her chest told her he was speaking the truth. You mean, I'm special? She asked, almost whispering. Kyle smiled faintly. Not special, necessary. Over the next several days, they met at the tower each night. Alara studied the signal while Kale spoke to her in quiet, carefully chosen words. He never rushed. He never forced. He simply guided her understanding. She discovered that the alien transmissions were part of what Kale called the Song of Renewal. It was a method the alien civilization had used long ago to heal emotional trauma through vibrations and language. The tones could soothe pain, calm fear, and rebuild hope. But humans, broken by centuries of struggle, had not been able to respond. Until now. Alara realized something astonishing. Kale was not just a stranger. He was a living bridge between humans and the alien language. Every time he spoke, every word, every pause, every rhythm, he resonated with the signal. He was teaching her not only to understand the code, but to feel it. And the more she listened, the more her own wounds, silent, invisible, and buried deep, began to fade. The guilt over her lost team, the fear of failure, the endless sleepless nights, they softened. For the first time in years, she felt at peace. It was not magic. It was not science as she knew it. It was something in between. A bridge built from words, care, and understanding. One evening, while listening to the translated tones, Alara noticed a pattern she had not seen before. The signal was evolving. It was no longer just playback, it was responsive. It adapted to her reactions, her breathing, her emotions. Kale noticed her expression. Yes, he said quietly. It responds to those who listen deeply. It mirrors the listener's heart. That is why it failed before. Humans were too fractured, but you are ready. Alara felt a mix of awe and fear. Ready for what? To finish what your team began, Kale said. His voice was steady, calm. To translate the Song of Renewal fully and to share it with the world. The city, the people, humanity itself. They need it more than they know. She swallowed hard. The weight of responsibility hit her suddenly. She had spent years hiding, avoiding the world, trying not to care. And now, Kale was telling her she could do something monumental, something that could heal more than herself. She hesitated. I don't know if I can. You can, Kale replied softly. I will guide you. You are not alone. The next day, Alara returned to her apartment and prepared her console. She carefully interfaced Kale's signal with the translation software. Her fingers trembled, but not with fear. Excitement, anticipation, and hope combined into a strange warmth. The console hummed to life, lines of code scrolling faster than she could read. Her heart raced. She tried to speak aloud the tones Kale had taught her. She stumbled at first, misaligning the frequencies, unsure of her voice. But Kale's presence guided her. His words echoed in her mind like a shadow of his voice accompanying hers. Slowly, steadily, the tones synchronized. The signal responded almost as if alive. It pulsed gently in harmony with her heartbeat. Alara gasped. She realized something incredible. She was part of the signal now. Her own emotions, her own rhythm had become intertwined with it. Kyle nodded, silent, approving. But the success did not go unnoticed. Erebos' central authority, always vigilant, always wary of unapproved signals and unknown energy patterns, detected the strange frequency emanating from the lower district. Their drones, sleek and silent, moved through the city streets toward Alara's apartment. She did not know this yet. She only knew that her work was working. Her heart felt light. The weight of years of guilt, fear, and loneliness had lessened. She had begun to feel human again, not alone, not broken. Kale sensed the change, too. You see, Alara, he said quietly, language is more than letters or sounds. It is connection. And the moment humanity reconnects, they will remember themselves. Alara smiled, tears in her eyes. She never expected to feel joy like this again. For the first time in years, she believed that not everything was lost. That night, she and Kale walked through the neon-lit streets after the translation session. The rain had softened to a gentle drizzle, and the city smelled of metal, wet stone, and faint electricity. You've changed, Kale said softly. I feel alive, she admitted. I never thought words could do this. I thought only science, only experiments. But your words, your presence, they are the bridge. They make me human again. He stopped and looked at her. You have always been human, Alara. You just forgot. They walked in silence for a few minutes, listening to the soft hum of the city, the whispers of rain, and the distant flicker of neon lights. It was a peaceful moment, simple yet profound. Then, without warning, the faint hum of drones passed overhead. A red glow reflected off the rain-slick streets. Cale stiffened. "They have found me," he said quietly. Ilara's heart raced. "Who?" "The Central Authority," he replied. "They do not understand. They will see me as a threat. I am not meant to be contained." Fear gripped her. But she knew in that moment that she could not run. Not anymore. The work, the song of renewal, the chance to heal humanity, it depended on her courage, on her voice. On the bridge, she and Cale had begun to build together. She took a deep breath and nodded. "Then we do this together. Whatever comes, we finish it." Cale's eyes softened and he allowed a faint smile. For the first time, he looked almost human. And in that moment, standing on a rain-slick street beneath the glowing towers of Erebos, Ilara realized that the stranger she had met was no longer a stranger at all. He was the beginning of something new. Something humanity desperately needed. The song of renewal was awakening, and for the first time in centuries, humanity might have a chance to listen. The red glow of drones reflected off the rain-slick streets as Ilara, Vance, and Cale stood near the edge of the lower district. The city of Erebos stretched above them like a forest of neon trees humming with energy. People hurried past, oblivious to the hidden drama unfolding at the heart of their city. Cale glanced upward, his pale gray eyes narrowing. "They are closing in," he said quietly. "But we have something they cannot understand. Connection. Humanity's hope is stronger than any system or rule." Ilara took a deep breath. She had never imagined herself in a moment like this. Not as a teacher, not as a survivor, not as someone who once hid in shadows. Yet here she was, standing beside a stranger who had become more than a stranger, working to awaken the hearts of an entire city. "Then we do this," she said firmly. "Together," Kyle nodded. "Yes, together." Back in her apartment, Ilara had already prepared the console. The song of renewal signal was ready, now fully integrated with her own voice. Every tone, every pause, every cadence reflected the emotions they shared. Hope, sorrow, understanding, and courage. Cale stood beside her as she initiated the broadcast. The signal streamed out through the city's networks, weaving through communication channels, feeding the AI cores and touching every speaker, screen, and personal device that could transmit sound. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The hum of Erebos remained, the drones gliding silently through the streets, and the city's citizens carried on. But slowly, subtle changes began to ripple through the crowd. A woman stopped in her tracks, listening to the tones from a street speaker. She touched her chest, surprised by the warmth rising in her heart. A child playing with a small drone smiled for no reason, feeling comfort he could not explain. A tired worker paused, inhaled deeply, and found that his fear and exhaustion seemed lighter. The song of renewal had begun. Cale watched intently as the signal reached deeper into the city. "They are listening," he said softly. "Their hearts remember what has been lost." Ilara felt a thrill of hope. Her own hands shook as she modulated her voice to harmonize with the alien frequencies. She had never experienced anything like this, the feeling of being part of something far greater than herself. Every note, every pause, every carefully spoken word carried emotion that humans had almost forgotten. Empathy, trust, and connection. Across Erebos, people paused. They stopped rushing, stopped looking at their screens, stopped ignoring the world. For the first time in decades, humanity was truly listening. Not to commands, not to noise, not to orders, but to each other. Meanwhile, the drones descended toward Ilara's apartment. Their sensors were focused on the energy signature Cale carried, unaware that the signal he carried was not a weapon, but a gift. Ilara realized that if they were captured, the broadcast could be cut off. She turned to Cale. "We may not have much time. Can you keep them from stopping us?" Cale's eyes softened. "I will do what I can." "But you are the key. The song needs your voice to reach everyone." She nodded, understanding the weight of her responsibility. The entire city, maybe even humanity itself, depended on her courage. The first drone entered the room, scanning. Cale stepped forward, calmly raising his hand. A soft pulse of energy radiated from him, not destructive but harmonizing. The drone hesitated, its sensors confused by the resonance. Its programming could not interpret this signal. The AI froze for a brief moment, unsure of how to respond to empathy. Alara seized the opportunity. She raised her voice, speaking the harmonized tones of the song. They flowed outward, blending with Kyle's resonance. The drone blinked, paused, and then retreated, unable to act against a force it could not compute. Outside, citizens of Erebos began to notice more profound effects. Fear, anxiety, and anger, the invisible weights of daily life, started to lift. The city itself seemed to breathe. Lights that had flickered dimly now glowed steadily. Holographic displays flickered into synchronized patterns, soft and soothing rather than chaotic. People stopped and listened. They didn't even know why they paused, only that something inside them was responding. Children laughed freely. Adults felt a calm they hadn't experienced in years. The energy of the song moved through the city like a gentle wind, touching everyone in ways they could not explain but deeply felt. Alara realized tears were running down her face. "It's working," she whispered. "It's really working." Kale nodded, a faint smile crossing his face. "It is because of you, Alara. Your heart, your understanding. It is what makes this signal human." The drones returned in larger numbers, forming a tight circle around the apartment. Their sensors scanned, calculating, analyzing, preparing to neutralize what they could not comprehend. Kyle looked at Alara. "You must finish the final sequence," he said. "The last part, the part that carries the message itself. Without it, humanity will only hear tones. They must understand meaning, feeling, hope." Alara took a deep breath and began speaking, carefully aligning her own words with the song. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied as she poured every emotion into the broadcast. Each word was a pulse of empathy, a bridge from heart to heart. The drones faltered as the final tones washed over them. They could not harm the signal. Their AI cores, confused and overwhelmed, began broadcasting the tones as well, unknowingly assisting in spreading the song. The city resonated. Light, sound, energy, and even the hearts of humans became synchronized in harmony. The song of renewal was complete. Kale stood beside Alara, watching the city transform. "This is what it was always meant to be," he said softly. "Not control, not order, connection." Alara smiled through her tears. "We did it. Together." But Kale's eyes darkened briefly. "I am not meant to stay. My existence is not compatible with their systems. Soon I will dissolve into the network. The song will keep me alive in memory but not in form." Alara's heart ached. She had grown to rely on him, not just for guidance but for hope and companionship. "Will I see you again?" she whispered. He placed a hand over hers. "I will always be here in the words, in the song, in every person who listens. You have given humanity what it needs, and that is enough." The drones began to retreat, overwhelmed by the power of the broadcast and unable to comprehend its purpose. Erebos citizens continued to experience the effects. Fear replaced by understanding, isolation replaced by connection, despair replaced by hope. Kale looked at Alara one final time. "Remember this," he said softly. "You were never meant to translate the stars. You were meant to remind them what it means to feel." Before she could respond, his form shimmered with soft light. He dissolved into the city's network, merging with the signals, the frequencies, the song. For a moment, Alara felt a profound emptiness. Then slowly she realized he was still present, not as a person, but as the voice of hope in every heart the song had touched. Weeks passed, and Erebos began to change. People walked differently. They smiled more. They paused to listen to each other, sharing words, laughter, and understanding. Communities long fractured by distrust and fear began to heal. Humans had begun to rediscover what it meant to care for one another. Alara continued her work, teaching students, guiding them, and integrating the song into every lesson she could. Though Kale was gone in physical form, his guidance remained, woven into the very fabric of communication and emotion in Erebos. One night, as she stood by the fusion tower, rain falling softly around her, she felt a familiar calm. Somewhere in the hum of the city, in the gentle flicker of lights and tones of communication, she heard a voice. Not Kale's exactly, not like before, but a reminder of what he had taught her. Silence is not the same as peace. Alara smiled, tears mixing with the rain. She had been broken, lost, afraid, but humanity had a second chance. And she had helped give it that chance. The city of Erebos was alive again. not because of machines, not because of orders, but because of words, empathy, and the courage of one human heart willing to listen, understand, and act. And in that realization, Ilara knew something simple, powerful, and true. Connection could heal even the deepest wounds. The song of renewal continued to hum through the city, carrying hope in every note, and humanity, for the first time in generations, truly listened.